a year, we have a Sunday where we do a mission emphasis. And at that time, we take our faith promise pledges for the year for what we'll do for mission. We always have, if we're able to get somebody, a special speaker. We kind of hard luck the last while getting missionaries. They're not sending very many to us, and to get one on a Sunday morning during our faith promise has become almost impossible the last while. But we have the next best thing with us this morning. Russ Brooks is here to be our special speaker this morning. He is the missionary president at our McConnellstown Church, and he's been on a few mission trips himself. Matter of fact, I understand he's even found a bride-to-be on one of those mission trips. So, I think most of you know who Russ is. It's Dan and Connie's son, Francine's brother, Maya's uncle, right? So we're glad to have Russ here with us this morning. He is a little nervous. He's never did anything like this before. So you pray for him as he comes. I'm sure the Lord will bless him as he comes. Bless you, Russ.
Amen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have a joke here for you. I wanted to thank Pastor Darrell. He did something my mother could never do, get me to wear a tie. I don't like ties. I feel like I'm being choked, but I felt that it was appropriate to do it today. I noticed in the bulletin the scripture in there today is from Matthew 28, about going into the world and making disciples of men. I actually have another scripture I'd like to read for you today.
That's fine, brother.
We'll go back to that, I'm sure. I thought because today was Faith Promise Sunday, I would focus a little bit on the word faith. So if you could turn to your in your Bibles to Hebrews 11:1. For some of you, I know Maddie in the back, she was in quizzing with me, and we did the book of Hebrews, and this is called the Hall of Faith. This chapter, it's about the Old Testament and those who followed the Lord in his prompting, and they were faithful to him. But the first verse is what I want to focus on. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. What I thought I would do is give a testimony today, an abridged testimony of my life, and where God has, or at least where I've seen where his faith or other people's faith have been directly impacting in my life, and how I'm to where I'm at today, uncomfortably up here speaking to other believers about my faith in who Jesus Christ is. Very uncomfortable, might I add, but I'm sure it will get better as I go. So, what I thought, I was writing this week, Pastor Darrell called me on the 10th of March and asked me to do this, and I told him I needed time, so I called him back the next day, and I prayed about it, and I don't want to not give God the glory, and I always want to do what he asks me to do. And when someone comes to me and says, I've been praying about this, and I feel like you should be doing this or something, I take that to heart. And it doesn't always mean that I should do it, but you should pray about it. You should seek God, because he doesn't always reveal it to you. He reveals it to others, especially if you know that person. You know, Pastor Darrell's a pastor. Everyone here, if he told you something spiritually, you would probably take that to heart and understand that he is speaking as as speaking for God, not for himself, not to get glory out of that. He's looking to do that. So in that purpose, I've come back full. I came around after the one day of hesitation, and I said, yes, I'll do this. Now, I didn't know what I was going to speak on, and that was frightening, because I'm not a pastor. I have not ever done this, so it's coming out of my comfort zone, per se. I am the missionary president, so I do get up in front of people on occasion, but it's not for the lesson. I'm not the lesson person. I'm not the pastor or nothing. So it is a little scary at times, but I think when we come out of our comfort zone, that's when Christ can be glorified, and we can allow him to give us the strength and draw it from him, not on our own.
Right.
I would like to pray right now, just so that we can stress that fact. So, Father God, thank you so much for this opportunity, this gift you've given me to speak before your people, Lord. Lord, I pray that as I speak, that everyone here will hear you, not me, that they will be filled with your Spirit in some capacity, Lord, that they can understand what faith is and how it works, Lord, and where it relates and correlates into faith promise, Lord. We thank you so much for the gifts that you've given us, Lord, whether it be monetary or spiritual gifts or abilities, Lord. I pray that everyone here understands that their gifts are theirs, and God has given them to them, Lord. And I pray that they'll use them to build your kingdom and to glorify your name. And I ask this in your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, like I said, the Hebrews 1 is a verse about faith. It gives you a definition of faith. And I'm going to come back to that, but I thought I would share some things in my life that I can say that is definitely someone following God in a revelation and being obedient to it, or myself doing that, and or some form of purpose that helped me grow in my faith to get me to be the missionary president of my church. I grew up in Petersburg. We lived in a little trailer across town near, there's an old sewing factory there and a pond. We lived right across from there for like 3 years. And my dad and mom found a house over in town right near the railroad tracks. And we moved over there, I think, when I was around 3. I don't remember that far back, but it's approximate. But anyway, cost of living, my parents both needed to work. So my mom and dad found a babysitter. It was a neighbor lady. Her name was Faye Hoffmaster. She actually just passed away this year. A wonderful woman who, through faith, we were there, me and my sister were there, and as far as I can remember, she had the 700 Club on every day. And whatever you think of the 700 Club, they preach Christ. Jesus Christ is about who is at. I asked her what that was all about, and she, in faith, gave me an opportunity to accept Christ. I think I was 5 at that point in time. My parents weren't going to church then, so I think if you look at it that way, God conveniently provided a way and a door to Him.
Amen.
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 Mm-hmm. Thank God. Bless him.
Sorry. Through that situation, my uncle and aunt were going to the Nazarene church, and my aunt grew up, she was a pastor's daughter. And because my parents weren't going to church at that point in time, they hadn't accepted Christ, it was an opportunity for me and my sister to go. And through that situation, we were in the church before my parents. I just look at these little steps, of faith for people. My aunt and uncle, who knows what they thought? I don't know why that drove them to bring us to church, but we were right there in town. Eventually, my dad and my mom came to a salvation message, and from that point on, it was our whole family in church. And I look at that point in time and I see that as God's grace, God's prevening grace in our lives to bring us in, to bring the sheep in. I'll skip over to the first time I was at this church. I don't, some of you are probably here. Summit Lake Camp is in Maryland. The Bowens had now become the pastor and his wife at our church, and they introduced children's camp to us. So I had the opportunity to come down here, hop on a bus, and go with a bunch of your kids to Summit Lake. And I think there were other kids from the area as well. There was a whole busload of us that would go. And that was a huge impact in my life, because I was able to get outside of the little church wall and see the bigger church, you know, at that point. And I don't know if you would relate that to a mission, but it was the pastor and Reba's mission to get the kids out of our church, outside of the walls of the church, into a bigger congregation per se, and with kids. So that was a great experience to be able to do that. Now, I didn't participate in teen camp. That was my own fault. I kind of was a recluse, I think, as my teenage years came about. Just young guys, that's kind of what we do at times. So I don't like that excuse, but that's kind of how it was. I kind of wanted to back off from it. But with that, the Bowens had met a young man from College Park Church, and he came to our church. His name was Matthew Pease. Matt is no longer with us. He died of a heart attack at age 28. But as a teenager, he came, and we would go down to Black Log to the Bowens camp. He would come and do revivals strictly for the teenagers and stuff like that. And what an impact. And he would say the tough stuff to you. Like, I remember, I was probably 16, 17, and he's like, "How are you doing spiritually?" He asked me directly to my face. And that doesn't happen very often these days. I think we neglect to do that to our brothers and sisters that are sitting right beside us in the pew. He asked me that, and of course, a teenager, I just went like this. He's like, "Dude, you can't be like that. This is wishy-washy. You need to be in or you're out." You know what I mean? You can't be half. You can't be straddling the fence. You got to be in.
Amen.
And I remember standing in the parsonage with him, and his wife said, "Don't pick on him so much." And he's like, "This is the most important thing for you to hear this now." You know. That was probably like the second or third meeting that he had come up, and he brought his youth from his church up, so there was some bonding time and everything. He was to come when I was 18. He was to come. I believe I was either out of high school or getting ready to graduate, and he had been in Vermont at a place and had a massive heart attack at 28 and died. And he was supposed to come the week before, and that was a huge loss. Huge loss. But I always remember, I will never forget his love for the teens that were there, plus the hard questions. You got to ask the hard questions to people, and do it in faith. Don't do it to puff yourself up, but to glorify the Lord. Later on, I attended ENC my freshman year. I actually was in the house that he died in. I thought that was like God coming full circle, and I did meet the pastor and his wife that he was with, and it was just amazing in my mind. I was just like, how is this all happening? You know, I was in Vermont. I never thought I'd ever be in Vermont, but you know, there I was in the house that he had his heart attack in, and it was one of those eye-opening things. But to this day, I love him and his friendship. To ENC, I attended ENC in the mid-90s. Went there for myself. I went there to play baseball. That was what I wanted to do. I was a young kid. That was what I liked. Sports aren't everything, but they are an avenue to Christ. It got me to go to UNC, and in faith I went there. I didn't have the money the first year I was out of high school, so I worked for a water bottling company and in State College. And while I was there, I was praying, and I wasn't sure what I was going to be doing, but God led me there. And even though it was maybe because of baseball, in some ways it was more than that. I know God used that whole adventure at ENC to get me to be closer to Him, to get me networking with people who love the Lord. We live in small towns, and there aren't a lot of us. When you branch out and you get outside of your comfort zones, you meet more people that love the Lord. It's like a mission, in that sense. Going to college was a mission in so many ways. I learned so much about people, about differences in how we look at things, and the struggles that some people have versus others. There might be, for me, it was a financial struggle to go there. For someone else, it was a physical ailment, and others spiritual, and to watch God work through everyone. It was wonderful. Being there, I met a lot of people who had, the mission agenda for Working Witness was just really thriving in the mid-90s, just starting to pick up. And that was where I first met my friend Mark and his wife-to-be, Donna. And they invited me to go on a mission trip in 1996, and that would be my first mission trip. And again, there I went out in faith. I didn't have the finances being in college. I was not making money other than student money. But we prayed about it, and at Donna's suggestion, she's like, why don't you write a letter to some people and tell them what you're doing? And I did that. And in faith, obviously, I'm going to keep coming back and say in faith, because this is what it's really about. It's about our faith. I did that. I sent it to my home church in Petersburg. I went to the Petersburg Nazarene Church. And in faith, they sent me practically the whole amount of money that was needed. Now, it's not like today where you need like $2,000 and the project money and all that. It was the flight and the food, basically, that covered everything. We didn't have much other going on. But they provided me a way to go. And I believe they went out in faith knowing that this is an investment we're making in on Him.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
Some individuals that stick out to me when it comes to being missional. My mom, she was a mission president at Petersburg. I was very blessed to grow up and like you said, have missionaries come. And I always loved the coins, like the different foreign coins. I was just into that. And I know my nephew loves flags. So if you ever go on a mission trip and want to get him a flag, he loves flags. And I try to get him something like that, where I bring coins back or something for him and Maya. But there was an older woman there who was a retired missionary. And when I say retired, it's like a Marine. Once a Marine, you're always a Marine. I think once a missionary, you're always a missionary. And the woman, all she would ever do is encourage me. She would, in her elderly voice, just say, I'm praying for you. And it was Reba Bowen's mother, Grandma Jones, is what we called her. And what a privilege and an honor to have her there. I apologize. She was my spiritual grandma. And knowing that those prayers were heard, and to be able to look back and know in faith.
Amen.
I apologize.
Yeah.
I had a feeling this was going to happen today. Some people say real men don't cry. Well, I think Christ men do.
Yeah. Amen.
Doing fine, brother.
There have been other people that have prayed over the years. And no one will come to faith without other people praying for them.
Amen.
It's not going to happen. Okay?
Amen.
Okay, so back to my mission trip. My first mission trip. What a wonderful experience. This is where I grew in faith and in knowledge of missions and how I wanted to be a part of it for the rest of my life. My friend Mark, I miss Mark. I don't see Mark anymore because he's fallen from the Lord. At least he fell from the Nazarene church, so I don't know. And I tried to reach out to him, and he doesn't reach out to me anymore. But he was called into the ministry, and he didn't follow up with it. Now, I don't know about you guys, but if you don't do what Christ says, he says he'll take it from you. Talents,
That's right.
okay?
Right.
Now, when I say that, I don't know where Mark is today, and I pray for him here and there because I pray for his soul. His marriage fell apart, and it was a burden to me to see that happen, but I thank God for him anyway because, you know, he helped me get into the missions, into loving missions the way I do. And going on a trip, not everybody can go, whether it's your health or your age or your financial status, whatever it is, but God has given me that blessing, and I have been able to go on numerous trips, 5 out of the country, and the ones I count in country are usually across country to like Sun Valley, or I've been up to Scroon Lake to help with the Word of Life camps for children's camp and teen camp and baseball camp. So, but I went to Puerto Rico in '96, and there was a group of us from York Church of the Nazarene in York, PA, and they're a fairly big church now. Well, they were big then too, and they were able to fund their own. Sorry about that. They were able to fund the trip themselves, so that was one affordability. I didn't have to pay for that, so all I had to come up with was the money. The church, like I said, they provided that. I was able to go. I saw God in so many ways that time. Everything is so vivid. 21 years later, I still have the memories that are just like they were yesterday. We had a baptism. We built a church. The only thing we didn't finish while we were there, we got the walls up, the columns. We weren't able to do the roof of the church. There were like 5 or 6 ladies that had been praying for a church, and they prayed wholeheartedly all the time, and finally we were able to come there and to build this church. I believe God used the ladies there to do VBS. I was the mud guy. Me and my friend Mark, he mixed the mud. I carried the mud over to the guys, and the guys that were a little more skilled in things, they put the wall up. I did help get on the floor. I had to leave my shoes behind because they got all muddy. But when I say mud, I mean concrete, cement. It was a great experience and a spiritually great experience. It was the first time I really prayed and I saw God work in my prayer, and other people saw it too. There was a man who was not feeling well, and I prayed for him, and his wife came up to me and she's like, I can just feel God's Spirit coming out of you. And I was like in shock because I was like, I didn't know. I was a stupid young early 20s guy, you know. I was just happy to play baseball kind of thing. And I felt like, wow, God used me. You know, I felt used. and that was a great thing. We had, and here's another thing that if any of you are interested, it doesn't matter the age. We had a 14-year-old there, we had a 72-year-old there. I've been on mission trips with 80-plus-year-old. If anybody knows Lloyd Morningstar, he's from down Huntington on the ridge there. He went with us out to Arizona. And anybody can go. If you feel you're up to it, don't hesitate because of your age.
Amen.
And mom and dads, find a good mentor. If you can't go, send your kid anyway.
Yeah.
Because I will never forget my first time going, and I was in my 20s. These teenagers that go, they're changed forever. Spiritually, they're growing quicker. It's like you're putting them in fertilizer. Okay, they're going to grow faster. They're getting fed really quick. We have girls at the church down here in McConnellstown. A couple of the Miller girls, I think some here are related to the Millers. Kylie Jo, Hannah, Olivia, Chloe Yablonsky. I name all their names because they make me proud. I am proud to be a Nazarene and proud to have girls and young people go. Now, we haven't had any boys go yet, but I'm waiting for that to happen. Maybe my nephew, maybe someday. But they all come back filled, and joyful, and they see God's hand at work. And like I said, it comes outside of the wall. We can't isolate ourselves. We can't insulate ourselves in the church. We have to go out. That's our command. God has given us that command to go outside of the church walls and to bring people in, to share your faith with them, okay? Quick story about Hannah. It was her first trip, and they were having a youth night, and they picked a movie, and it just happened to be the movie Taken. I don't know if any of you have seen that movie. It's about human trafficking in a foreign country, and she was scared to death because of watching that movie. And me and another guy, Dan Kaufman, we were going to be her, watch over her and everything. And I had to literally, I sat and I prayed a boldest prayer I could pray for her the day we prayed at the church, because I didn't want her not to go. The minute she was on the plane and with us, she was fine. But up until that point, that devil was working. Man, he was working overtime because he knows her heart. She just graduated from the VOTEC. She's going to be taking blood for people, and she'd like to somehow turn that into missions. So she's been to Albania twice. Once, her and Chloe went by themselves with, and then one other time with Mike Speck. So there's opportunity for your young people to get into it, and even you, if you feel called, to go on these trips. They're always life-changing, especially that first one, because it's so new. I don't know about you, but when I was a teenager and in my 20s, everything seemed to be slower because everything was new. But when you've been around the block a few times, the memories aren't quite as vivid and everything. It's like every day at your job or something, you know what I mean? But like the first trip, like I said, 21 years later, I can remember so many things. I remember the little fire ants we had to sit on when we were eating, and the mud, the mixer had a short in it, and every time you touched it, it shocked you. It was crazy. There was a young guy with us. He was probably 2 or 3 years older than me. Combed his hair for 25 minutes every day. It was crazy. I don't understand why, but there was no one there to impress. He was working, but I had to comb his hair. And just the growth that you get as you work together. You have one purpose when you go there, and it's to do whatever it is God has called you to do. And it takes you away from the everyday life, and it's like a mini revival. It really is, because your whole time you're focused on the Lord. The whole time, you have a common purpose, and you're there, and that's what you're doing. From that point on, I came back to Petersburg. I was there for probably about till 2006, and God called me to leave. I'm not going to go into that it was a really stressful, bad time for me. I will say that even in those times that are bad, in faith, God uses it to make you a better
Amen.
person,
Amen.
or to teach you to grow in spirit.
Mhm.
I run into another one 3 years after that. I was in a hunting accident. I accidentally shot my uncle. And I haven't hunted much since, not because I don't want to, but I feel like God pulled me in a different direction. I started helping with quizzing in the fall. And I don't do that anymore, but I did it for 5 or 6 years. Like I said, Maddie was part of that. I know those teams, they grew. They didn't know everything. They didn't learn all the material, but they learned so much just by reading the Word and getting together and fellowshipping with other teams and just having a good time. With that also, I decided to run for the missionary president at the church. It's not always fun to be in leadership. At sometimes it's very, it can wear on me. But I know God is in that because at that point in time, no one was running, and they needed someone to run. And my whole thing about missions is, as a mission president, I'm an informant. I'm to be there to tell you what's going on out there, whether it's local or it's global. I need to be the guy that is telling you what's going on, whether that means videos or bringing missionaries in to share their faith and what's going on where they're from, or the classes that we have that talk about that. That to me is what missionary president does. Now, I'm sure there's other things that you can look at and say this is what the missionary president does, but in my heart and mind, that's what God wanted me to do. That's what He called me to do, is to get involved, to try to help people want to go on mission trips. McConnellstown is a very missional church when it comes to going, very much. They go to Sun Valley pretty much every other year, and they always come back with wonderful stories of growth and loving going on. And that's an easy trip. You're not needing your passport. You can stay in the country. It's safe. You don't have to worry about those types of things. If you're ever looking for a trip, that would be a great first trip to go on. And I can get you some information if you'd like that. But the hunting accident, it also helped me grow spiritually. Again, another hard thing to go through, and putting my dependency on the Lord. I think that it really, it's so true about when you go through struggles, how you grow. If you're already born in the Spirit and you're going through these struggles, if you look to Christ, that's where it's at,
Amen.
And I don't want to go through struggles, but and no one does. But you can't say that they don't help you. To Pastor Greg, the man has grown spiritually because of his situation. He'll admit it. The things that stress you out as a leader, they're gone for him. He doesn't care about them anymore. As a pastor, you take on a lot of burdens, right, Pastor Darrell? And some of those things are because people in your church caused the problem. And I'm not saying anyone here would do that, but I'm just saying that there's sometimes that the things that are really not important, hey, you didn't empty the trash can, or you didn't get the mail out of the mailbox last week, or there could be anything. Anyway, those little things, you didn't pick the right song for this sermon, whatever it was, whatever it was, he's kind of let those little things go, and he will attest that he has grown spiritually from it, and I know this is off subject. I do want to thank you guys for praying for him, and your friendship with him. He has commented on it many times, that he has had you to go to because you've gone through that situation, and he sees that as a plus. And I thank you on behalf of him and our church for doing that. And I thank all the local clergy, retired and active right now, because our church, you know, is going 7 weeks without our shepherd. We have Pastor Dave doing calling, Pastor Ray Earlston gonna fill in pulpit, and Ron Sheehan as well gonna fill in the pulpit supply. So we're covered on that kind of stuff, and it's just great to see how God's body works when one of us can't do what we're normally doing. Back to the verse. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. When I was reading this verse, the word substance kind of came out at me. I was studying that a little bit. I went to some other versions. They use the word confidence. They use the word assurance. The one word that I found that I thought was the one that fits completely with today is foundation. Your song goes in completely with it. The wise man built his house upon the rock. Who's the rock? Jesus Christ, right?
Amen.
Jesus Christ explained to Peter, on this I will build my church. This foundation, I will build my church. That is himself. Jesus Christ is the foundation. A lot of people play on those words. It's not Peter. It's Jesus.
Right.
He is the rock. He is the foundation. And our faith is built on that. Okay? And when I come to faith promise, I look at that word and I'm saying, in faith, I'm going to make a promise because God already called me to do it.
Amen.
It's not our money. It's his money.
Right.
Nothing's yours.
Right.
The clothes you wear, the car you have, the house, the money in your pocket, none of it's yours. It's his. He gave it to you. Why did he give it to you? So that you could glorify his name, be good stewards, and build the kingdom. That's our calling.
Amen.
To go and make disciples. With that verse in Matthew, I want to also remind you of Acts 1:8, that you need to be filled with the Holy Spirit. Okay? So you need to pray about what you're going to give. You need to know that God has told you what to do, and then obey. Okay? It's better to obey than sacrifice. That's Old Testament.
Right.
So it all comes together when we're living in faith. I guess I'm done. Hopefully you got something out of this. I thank you for the opportunity, and God bless.
Amen.
Amen.